What's happening, Lions Nation?
Pizza Nation, Lions Nation, let's ride!
Let's ride indeed. Now, speaking of Broncos country, by the way, just a quick aside, they have been eliminated from playoff contention, which I very much enjoy. So
Wait, what?
it just makes me happy.
Wait, the Broncos are out?
Yeah, they're out. It's crazy, right?
Damn, they were
Nuts.
right there, dude.
They were this fucking close.
Dude, you know what team's actually close? Actually, the Detroit Lions, and that's why we're wearing. And dude, by the way, we didn't even coordinate this. Like
we just turned on the cameras and it was like, wait a minute.
We just both started laughing. It was like, hey, like look at that.
Yeah, I got Barry on here. Speaking of which, just looking at the frame here a little bit or whatever. Lions, go back to the white numbers. Just saying. Like the silver number is a little hard to see on television, and even on the product, listen, I like the silver. I'm going
to be real with you. I think it looks like duct tape. I agree with you, but I also don't have that strong of an opinion. Listen, it's not that good.
Go back to the white.
Listen, we could talk about cosmetics at a different time about this team. Yeah. Just give me something watchable has been the plea for all these years. And I understand when like you don't think it's realistic that this team's going to be good, that you at least want them to look good when they don't play good. So I understand wanting the uniforms to look good then. But
yes,
Robert,
this team has suddenly become very fun to watch.
Not only that, but they've become legitimate, like wild card threats.
Oh yeah.
Like this is a team that like if you look at the wild card race and like who's currently in there right now, like we know in the NFL it's all about getting hot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a better time to be hot than November, December. And there's not a team in the NFL that's hotter right now than the Detroit Lions, which Robert,
it just feels illegal to say.
I am used to hearing jokes about the Lions in, October and November, and then it's like, all right, conversation's over.
Well, yeah, because by that point they're about 1 in 10 or something.
Right.
Like it's over. It's beyond over.
Well, and the thing is that you notice about this team, even when the Lions were 1-6,
yes,
even when they were 32nd in defense, and at one point was technically the worst defense in NFL history.
Yes.
Not only
that's when we were calling for Dan Campbell's job.
Yeah, which not only did the Lions not quit on Dan Campbell, not only did Dan Campbell not quit on anything, not only did those players not quit on what was going on, but like even the national media at 1-6 was like, this is a good 1-6 team. Like this record doesn't show how good they are. And then it's like, and then seeing it for real, it's like, oh, like, no, this team can play because, you have that Bills game on Thanksgiving, which if that pass to, Stephon Diggs is incomplete, we'd be winning. That would be 6 in a row. So it's crazy, man. And now after that Vikings game, again, we talked about it last week after the Vikings game, the schedule doesn't look too bad, especially with how convincingly they won, because Robert, they controlled the entire game.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Vikings got their asses kicked, which was very surprising in a lot of ways. I know that this Vikings team has been fairly criticized for not being the best looking 10-2 team of all time.
Right.
But at the same time, you got to get there somehow, right? And they do have a lot of threats on the team. They are a very, very potent offense. But
they have Justin Jefferson, who might be the best wide receiver in football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So seeing that team get their asses kicked by the Lions was very interesting. It's funny, right? Because in some ways, you have a team like the Lions who might have been the best 1-6 team ever, and you have the worst 10-2 team ever, and they kind of just like traded the baton there. And while the Lions, well, technically the Vikings haven't clinched The division. So technically, if they lose every game and we win every game, the
I don't.
Lions can technically still take it. But for all intents and purposes, the Vikings are going to still win the division.
Yeah.
But the thing that's very interesting is you could conceivably say that the Lions will win their first playoff game.
Well,
And
I mean, let's we still got to get there first because there's still some contingencies of things that have to happen in order for them to get the wild card spot. So right,
very
so
true.
right now in the standings currently, they are when looking at the wild card when looking at the wild card spots at the moment, they're currently sitting right outside, right next to the New York Giants and the Seattle Seahawks. What two
Right.
teams have looked ice cold of late?
Definitely the Giants and definitely also kind of the Seahawks. The Seahawks have been very up and down all season in general, but
Mhm.
they've definitely not looked like anything that I would worry about. But the Giants have been ice cold.
By the way, have you ever
Mhm.
seen a division leader not get a win in their own division? At this point in the season, the New York Giants have not won a game in their division.
How is that even
Oh wait,
possible?
never mind. My apologies. The Cowboys, duh. The Cowboys lead their division. I'm
Mm.
being dumb. I was looking at a wrong spot. I don't even know where that came from, Robert. But yeah,
Okay, that's fair. I was gonna say, I was like, that doesn't sound possible.
listen, I'm gonna level with you.
That's because it's not.
I'm gonna love it. I'm kind of a dumbass. I just changed. But I mean, it's
But
just
yeah,
one of
because
those.
you play, what would it be? Let's see, 2 games, 2 games. So yeah, you play collectively 6 games against division opponents.
Mhm.
So if you were to lose 6 games, those better be your only 6 losses because there's no fucking way that
Mhm.
you're in top of the division.
So to my knowledge, the way the Lions get in,
Yeah.
I saw this somewhere on Twitter, so I want to pull it up to confirm. But I believe they either have to win out or win 3 of their next 4.
Okay.
I could see them winning 3 of their next 4.
Easily.
Like
We said last week that their biggest challenge potentially would have been last weekend against the Vikings, and that proved to be absolutely not a challenge at all. Like that was one of the easiest games, if not the easiest, I've seen the Lions play all season.
well, it
So,
was just the it was
I
just the
mean,
it was just the best executed game just across the board. I mean, first of
yo,
all,
they threw a pass to Panay Sewell. Like,
which
what the
was
fuck
a
is happening?
which was a gutsy play call, but amazing play design.
It
And then
was
like
so good.
and then like the crazy thing is that like, if like I've been listening to like a lot of people talk about the Lions and like
Mm,
like a lot of things that people point out. This was supposed to be the year where like, they were like being patient and like next year is when they were going to cash in because this summer they have that top pick where they can go potentially get a quarterback. They have cap space, this summer. They have a lot of
sure.
contracts coming off the books. This was supposed to be, year 2, another rebuild year. Now, there's people that are saying this team could get to the playoffs, and with how weak this NFC is, who the knows what happens?
It's crazy, right? Because like the other part of it is that I was gonna kind of bring up was like, so the Lions can definitely make the playoffs based on the rest of their season,
Mhm.
um, or their schedule. So if they make the playoffs, their first playoff game would be against somebody that I definitely believe they could beat. It doesn't really matter who it is.
Yeah.
So they win their first game, and let's say that the Vikings win their game.
Mhm.
Conceivably, the Lions meet the Vikings in the playoffs a second time here. I mean, the Vikings have looked like ass against this Detroit team, so you could see the Lions if in that scenario alone, I think they could get 2 playoff wins.
Even
I think
then
it's interesting.
even then, couple if the Lions don't make some mental mistakes and they call that game differently to start the season, they only lost to the Eagles by 3.
True.
People forget this Eagles team that's looked explosive all season, and they looked explosive week 1 too. It's not like they played a bad game. They put up
Nope.
38 points,
Yep.
but the Lions hung right in there. Like that's the
Against our worst defense.
like when we were playing our worst. like all across the board. So like,
It's interesting. Like it sounds like Lions Kool-Aid, by 1,000, like every single other time ever to be
well,
like, well, there's a path to the Super Bowl here. But in like a weird, fucked up kind of way, there sort of is though. Like there
like
really has never been a path,
well,
right?
there
Like
is, because here's the thing, whether
it's
it's this year
weird.
or whether it's in the next couple years, there is a realistic window of, oh no, you got to look out for the Detroit Lions. Like when you look at like the teams in the NFC right now, let's just look at the standings right now in the NFC.
Okay.
So, Eagles are the best team, right?
Right.
No one disputes that.
Correct.
I think it's fair to say the 49ers are the second best team overall roster-wise.
Roster-wise, yes. It depends on how good Chase Purdy can be. That's his
Brock
name,
Purdy.
right? Chase Purdy's a NASCAR driver. Brock Purdy.
You piece of shit.
Brock Purdy. Yeah, I mean,
You better
listen,
remember his name with how he kicked your team's ass this last weekend.
I'm very aware. And here's the thing. My thing with the 49ers is it depends on how good he can be against any other team that isn't the Buccaneers, because the Buccaneers fucking suck.
But let me
So,
ask you a
like,
question though.
it's hard to
Like
say.
but if you're looking in like the grand scheme of the NFC,
Sure.
if the Vikings and 49ers were to play in a playoff game, who you got?
I'm taking Vikings unless Purdy continues to do what he did this past Sunday against the Bucs against every other team in the regular season for the rest of this year. But I don't see that happening, so I would take the Vikings.
Let me get this straight. In a high pressure game, money on the line, you're betting on Kirk Cousins?
I mean, I'm taking him over Brock Purdy. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Like, but like the reason, like the difference
It's just
though,
really hard to give it to a Mr. Irrelevant third string
that's
rookie quarterback, essentially. I mean,
that's fair. But the difference though is, and like obviously now that Debo's out, like that hurts.
right. And Debo being out
That
is
hurt
huge.
that hurts it a little more. However, if you look at like what the 49ers do,
Mm-hmm.
like the entire point of their offense is that the quarterback can't be what gets in the way, because he doesn't. Like that's the entire thing. Is that
That's
the
true.
quarterback, like it's just about making simple reads, like handing off the ball as much as humanly possible, which
Right.
that backfield they have mixed with that pass rush they have, like they don't need to get in high scoring affairs. They just need to smack you in the face when their defense is on the field, and then they just need to run it down your throat and keep your quarterback off the field. Like that's really it. And like Kyle Shanahan, like I trust Kyle Shanahan more than a year one head coach.
That's
And
true.
and also a lot of these 49ers guys were part of that Super Bowl run. So they're experienced. They've been to the playoffs. So like this is when the 49ers play their best football. That's just my opinion, but
Yeah.
you could make an argument about like whichever team. From
Yeah, I
there,
definitely
you
think that it fucks things up with the injuries and stuff. Yeah.
but then you get to like after that, like 2 or 3,
Sure.
you can make a legitimate case the Lions are the 4th best team in the NFC right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I like them better than the Buccaneers right now. Sorry, but I do.
Hell of a lot better than the Buccaneers.
The Cowboys are 10-3, but like,
The Cowboys are an interesting, somewhat sneaky, potentially dangerous one as well. I will say they're a team that, yeah, they don't like thrill me. They don't really strike me as like a great team, like most of the time, right? But like with the talent on, it's like one of those weird cases where it's like, it's kind of like the Lions, where it's like you never bet on the Cowboys these
Right.
days because the Cowboys have been kind of ass, but like it's kind of hard to say.
Also, when like are we just like pussyfooting with the Odell thing? Like when are the Cowboys signing Odell?
Yeah, so I don't think he's gonna get signed by anyone this year. So apparently they didn't like his
Oh,
physical. Yeah, because something's wrong with his knee still. Like he's not recovering good enough from his injury. And
that's right,
so,
that's right,
yeah,
that's right.
he's not getting signed by nobody. That is
Okay.
why it has been so weird. Because
Yeah.
everyone's been wondering for a while, much like you said, they're like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, are we going to just sign this guy? Or like, what,
Yeah, because
what,
like they
what are
were
we
like
doing?
going to Mavericks games, like they were like practically
Yeah,
like
it was
there with
strange.
Micah Parsons, like they were like trying to parade it around, man.
It was very strange, and like he's been visiting like a bunch of different teams, and it was like, can someone just fucking sign this guy so that we can stop seeing this? And
Right,
then he did his first like major physical where it was just like, oh, his knee is still fucked.
right.
And then it was like, okay, well, that's why.
Well, I think again, like the Cowboys are just a roster that like or a team that you expect to play well in the regular season. They don't really have a great division. They can out talent pretty much almost their entire division except Philly.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
then from there, like pretty much every time they get to the playoffs, I always expect them to get outperformed, outcoached, literally outmatched in every phase. And then they lose by like 1 or 2 touchdowns. And Cowboys fans are like, the refs are against us. We got robbed as they were as they threw 3 interceptions, as they like had 2 fumbles, as they had like
Had a
12
safety.
penalties. Literally, like I remember last year, like the 49ers game, like in the playoffs, the Cowboys committed the most playoff like penalties in a playoff game in
Oh
like
yeah, I remember
NFL
that game. It was
history.
unbelievable.
Yeah, and they were like, "The refs robbed us of that game," and it's like, no, if you're stupid enough to get the most penalties in an NFL playoff game in the history of the National Football League, you deserve it.
Yeah, it's over. Like
Yeah.
you've deserved it. Yeah, no, man. I think it is so bizarre, right? Like
Mhm.
in the past, okay, even if we go back to Stafford and Megatron in the playoffs, it's like, okay, that was one of the better Lions teams of the past couple decades.
Right.
The problem with that Lions team is it was extremely one-dimensional, and also the NFC was a powerhouse. You had the Seahawks who were
Yep.
on their Super Bowl runs. You had, every other team in the NFC that was just insane. Green Bay was always a force. Like, it's weird. Like, right now, you would assume would not be like you would think back then would be, oh, that was our last real chance at making the Super Bowl. But
Mhm.
honestly, we had less of a chance then and more of a chance now
Yeah.
because it is just so much weaker in the NFC and there's really so many, variables and less
Well,
talented teams in front of us that it's like,
yeah. Well, I also think too, like a lot of those teams, like back in the day when it felt like we had a decent shot, it
sure.
was 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Oh yeah.
There was like an insane amount of talent in that locker room, but we could like when we had the talent, we couldn't get the coach. When we got the coach, we had an injury. Or when we got the coach, we had to cut in the salary cap and we lost some of the talent. Like
Yep.
when we finally got that back around, now we have a doofus in the front office who goes and drafts Eric Ebron. You know what I mean? It's like
Bruh.
it's just you can go down like the entire list, and it's just like the thing
Which
is like
draft pick was worth it, Ebron or Jamarcus Russell? Because it's close, isn't it?
I mean Eric Ebron at least had an NFL career.
That's fair.
Jamarcus Russell after like 2 years, it was like he literally came into training camp 1 year and they said he looked more ready to be an offensive lineman than he did to be a quarterback.
And in fairness, he very much did.
He showed up over 300 pounds.
Remember when we were talking about how much of a fat sausage my boy Seabass was a couple of years ago, or like a couple episodes ago? Like, yeah, it was kind of like that, but 10 times worse. Like Sebastian Janikowski looked fat towards the end of his career, but like this motherfucker showed up like 2 games into the first season and suddenly was like 300 pounds.
Yeah, it was like it was just one of those situations, man. Like, oh my gosh, like I remember like when Jamarcus Russell was drafted, and just like I just remember seeing him in college, and it was like, man, like this guy has a lot of talent. And then just the second he got in the league, it was just like this guy just sucks.
Dude, it was crazy. Like he really was a great pick because I mean the Raiders needed that big time quarterback, like that was their guy. And there's really nothing that could have prepared them for what they got. Like there's really nothing.
Yeah, I'm reading an article here, and it makes a good point that like people were so enthralled with Vince Young at the time. Remember when Vince Young
Yes.
came out and
Yes.
people were trying people were saying, "Oh, well, they were trying to find the next Vince Young." And it's like, "Well, yeah, that's fair cuz Vince Young's rookie year, he was a superstar.
Yeah.
And then the rest of his year happened. Or then the rest of his career happened."
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's bizarre. Like they were kind of following that trend, and yeah, they both kind of just didn't really work there.
Yeah, well,
So,
Vince Young worked for a little bit in the NFL.
a little bit, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Marcus Russell just never worked.
Immediately.
Like like, he didn't work in the gym.
Like,
He didn't work
literally
in the practice
day
room.
1, like, the very first time he stepped into the Raiders, like, facilities, they knew they were fucked. Like, immediately. They handed him the key card and were like, "Ooh, maybe we shouldn't have just given him that."
Yeah.
Like,
They
immediately, they're
just
like, "Fuck."
yeah. They were like, they drafted him, and it was like, "Oh, no." Listen, man. The fa
They saw him literally wolfing milkshakes, like, multiple, and they were like, "We fucked up."
Do you and then there's also the story of the fact that they gave Jamarcus Russell
Fake tapes.
yeah, the
Yeah.
blank tapes, and he came
Yeah.
back, he's like, "Yeah, they're blitz packages." Just
Like, that's the type of shit that you hear, like, joked about, but they actually for real did that to him, and he actually for real failed.
I mean, if you have
I
so
mean, you
little
can't make this shit up.
I mean, if you have so little of faith
Yeah.
in your guy that you're sending home blank tapes, that's the red flag right
Dude,
there.
it's
It
over.
it just seals the deal when you're proven right. That's
Yeah.
just yeah, that's a we could do a whole deep dive on Jamarcus Russell. That's a
Speaking of which, that
gee.
is today's Raiders report. Good old Raider report. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Raider report
I'm
is that
sure
the
there's not
season
anything
is
else pertinent to talk about other than Jamarcus Russell.
listen, man, the Raiders season's over and so is the Buccaneers. In honestly, like the Buccaneers, the best case scenario for this team, by the way, is the fact that it is entirely possible for them to actually lose the division to the Panthers.
Mhm,
And that would honestly be the best case scenario. If they can fall a little bit, like if they can basically just tank the rest of the way and try to get a somewhat better draft pick, that's
mhm.
pretty much the best case scenario. And
It
then after
just
that, you're just going to have to go after either A, free agent quarterback, or B, you're going to have to draft somebody because Tom Brady is gone.
I'm not gonna lie, man, like, it felt like, like last year when it was like, "Yeah, we won the Super Bowl, let's run it back." It's like, yeah, this team deserves the chance to go out and, like, try and defend their title and, like, see if they
And
can do it
they,
again. And then they didn't really look as good, and then, like, they kinda
yeah,
struggled and, like,
the
they
regular
lost in the
season, they looked a lot better than they had, but then
yeah.
in the playoffs, they immediately, something was wrong. And
And
this
then they were
season,
just and then they were just like, if this is indeed the end for Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. This was a great run for Tampa. And all of a sudden it's like, and not really. Let's run it back. Eh?
again.
And then and it's like it just feels, like the party that like or like you know that one thing you went to with your friends at one time, and it clearly meant a lot more to one of the guys that went than like it did to you, and they just like keep bringing it up, and it's like, hey, you remember that like trip we took to like you remember that like trip we took to the mall like when all of us like went down we went to like we went to like Build a Bear like dude like that day was like it was the best day it was the best day dude and like you're there and it was just like oh yeah, I only did that because my other friend canceled. And like they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay."
I
Like
kinda know exactly what you're talking about. I just when you threw in the left curve of the Build-A-Bear, I just died. I died so hard.
that's the
It's strange though, man. Like,
it's like the party that should have ended 6 hours ago.
yeah, for sure.
It's like you're sitting there
I
like on the
honestly,
couch. They still won't let you go, but you have your
yeah.
coat literally on. You like started your remote started your car 20 minutes ago and they just won't let you leave. They
You
just won't
keep remote
stop
starting your
this
car.
madness,
It's
man.
it's now out of gas.
It's like
I just
they just shouldn't have brought it back in the first. I get Tom
yeah.
Brady wants to come back to your franchise. You can't say no,
Well,
especially
and I
with
think
the
some of the bigger problems also is, like, you also lose, like, Bruce Arians, and you put guys into different positions, which honestly, I'm surprised it affected the team as much as it did, but here we are.
well also like
And
here's the other thing. outside of Bruce Arians, like, when have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers been a functional franchise?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like
Never.
like
And
like
even then, they were like semi-functional.
yeah, it was like, "Wah!" Like he
But
was, like, publicly beefing with Jameis.
oh
He
yeah,
literally said after the season, like, "Yeah, we literally had the most passing touchdowns. We also had the most interceptions. Like, that's why. Like, we sucked."
yeah. I mean, and he wasn't wrong. Well, and yeah, it's just there's a lot with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that is a struggle. I think also guys are just not as bought in, especially after having won the Super Bowl. I think there's some guys that are just kind of like the passion's still there. They still want to win, but there's a different level of hunger that you have when you've never won that Super Bowl.
Listen.
Once you've won it, it's kind of like it's easy to go, "Damn, we didn't do it this year, but at least we did 2 years ago." Like
Mhm.
it's kind of easier to do that, but at this
It
point, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, they can do anything they want, like, throughout the season to try to, like, improve it. Like, they could have done anything they wanted to try to improve this roster and put this team in a better situation. But when you can't run the ball, like, to the point where your leading rusher was 13 carries, 56 yards, you rushed for 69 yards as a team. So do you know how many times Tom Brady threw in that game?
I don't.
55!
Sick.
He That's like when you somehow get more attempts than Tom Brady's actual age, that's a problem.
Dude, and this has been yeah, honestly, it's been just a nightmare season for a lot of reasons. Like the offensive line being injured and having a lot of fucking problems has been the biggest thing. Like that offensive line falling apart. Honestly, like that was the one thing we had to fix before Tom was going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Was like he talked to him and said, "You're drafting an offensive lineman." And they said, "Yes, we are." And they need to either do that again if he's going to stick around and like really fortify that offensive line to get this run game back on track and to, balance the offense again. Or I just I don't know. And the thing is too is they've been trying this fucking run game all season long. Like
Mhm.
they've tried doing nothing but run the ball to try to figure out like how to make it work with this offensive line. Spoiler alert, you can't. Like you literally can't. The offensive line is ass and the running backs are okay. Like I love LeGarrette Blount, Jesus Christ. I love Leonard Fournette, but it's
You're not
just
that guy, pal.
yeah, he's just not that guy. Like he has a lot of flashes of it. I think he's
He used to
honestly
be.
he's damn near a fullback at this point. Like he's that guy you put in to just barrel through and get into the end zone or for like a big time down, right? But like he's not your every down back. He's not your get a big huge burst in the open field. He's just not that guy.
Well,
So
I think Leonard Fournette is symbolic of why it's gonna be hard pressed to see star running backs, throughout, like, the NFL in the long term, just because you get hit so many times. And when he was in Jacksonville, like, he was the workhorse. Like, they were just putting the ball in his hands, and it's like Leonard Fournette, like, he looks old, right?
oh yeah.
He's 27.
Yeah, it's insane. He's literally my age, but it's crazy.
Like, if he was an NBA player, he'd be in his prime.
Yes.
Like, if he was, like, a great NBA player,
Hmm.
we'd be saying he has 12, 13 years left, and they
Easily.
play 82 games in a season,
Yep.
you know?
No,
Like
it's insane, and, like, the thing is that's so bizarre, and it's really accelerated, I feel like, in the NFL, over the last few years, but, like, the running back position is pretty much a position that you should never pay for, almost. Like, you
you
might as well like, if
you
you're
wanna
going to
get
have a running back, you wanna draft him and have all of your best years with him as, on that rookie deal, and then after that, you just fucking see
yeah.
ya.
You don't want one great guy. You want a room of pretty good guys that you
Yeah.
can rotate around for different reasons. Guys who can run, guys who can catch, guys who can, play in the pass game, guys who can protect, you have to be, you have to be like a Swiss, you have to be a Swiss Army knife at that position. But like really, it's really the wide receiver that you
Yeah.
need to like we talk like you look at like like 6, 7 years ago, guys would say, "Oh, well, the wide receiver is just the flashy position. You don't really go out," but like wide receivers are winning games now. Like Devontae Adams, yeah, like Aaron Rodgers was great. Part of the Packers' dominance was Devontae Adams was unstoppable. Literally, like Jamar Chase was the difference of that Bengals team being, yeah, they all right, to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy too is I think that there's an actual real possibility where the Raiders throw one final Hail Mary next season and it is their last fucking shot until they have to just blow it up.
You know what they could do?
Here's what I think they're going to do.
I think we're on the same wavelength right now. Ready?
The thing of it is that their running back is going to be a free agent.
Mhm.
And he's a beast. The
Mhm.
man is the number 1 running back in the league. However, they can franchise tag him. They franchise tag him for that single year just to make sure they have him because they're not going to pay him the money. All right. So you franchise tag him one time to make sure we've got you this year and we are going to go Super Bowl or bust. And if we don't make it to the Super Bowl, or even if we do, you're gone.
The
Right.
best running back in the league?
I'd say that. Yeah.
Like,
Especially if you look at like his stats over the last like whatever. Like I thought I saw the other day that his stats were number 1 in the NFL. Maybe I'm
all right.
wrong. Very well could be.
All
But
right,
I'm
let
pretty
me.
sure he is.
No, I like if that is like that's just news to me. Like I'm just surprised. So it looks like
Yeah.
it looks like yeah. Let me pull it up. I think it looks like he's yeah. Oh, yep. I stand corrected. Never
Yeah.
mind. Holy cow!
Yeah. He's
1,400 yards.
yeah. Yeah.
Holy
So
cow!
yeah, exactly. So you have the number 1 running back, but you're not gonna fucking pay him if you're smart. And the Raiders are not known to be smart, so I guess we'll see. Here's though the thing that I think they should do.
They've also been cheap though, and they
They
don't have much
are
money.
also extremely cheap. Is you franchise tag him, and then you get rid of Derek Carr's sorry ass. I love Derek Carr, by the way. Love Derek Carr, but he's
After
getting
you
paid
just
way too
call
much
him a
fucking money.
sorry ass. I love Derek Carr. I love Derek Carr. Get rid of his
Love
sorry
Derek
ass.
Carr,
Get him
but
the
he's
fuck.
got to fucking go.
And I know exactly where you're going next. Bring in
And
Tom
I think there's
Brady.
one of two guys. I think Tom Brady makes the most sense in the universe because it's an easy move. He's not on a contract.
It's
You just
literally his offensive coordinator is the
It's
head coach.
perfect.
He
You
knows
send
the
him there.
system.
He has all of the weapons he could ever want. He has a tight end who's electric. He has wide receivers who are incredible, great slot guys even. He's
Plus an
got
old
himself a running back.
plus an old dude that's dating young girls that's into selling pseudoscience and goes and retires in Vegas. That sounds perfect.
Zoink scoop. But yes,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
it's
Kind of.
honestly like the perfect situation. And I think that if the Raiders did that, they could easily win a Super Bowl. Like easily. They would win it immediately, just like they did with the Buccaneers. Or like I think that Tom Brady with the
I mean,
Raiders next
okay,
season would be the same thing as the Buccaneers.
Okay, but like I get where you're coming from in the sense that like it would immediately bring that team to another level. Him and Devontae Adams would be, definitely would be, the next best weapon that he's had. You know what I mean? Like just like add him to the list of great wide receivers he's been with. But you're like not only are you going to be in the AFC now, like
Sure.
you're gonna have to deal with like all the other you're gonna have to deal with Joe Burrow, you're gonna deal with the Buffalo Bills.
Sure.
You're gonna like Patrick Mahomes is in division. You're gonna have to play him not once but twice
Twice a year.
in the regular season. So like in order to like get a good playoff seeding, you're gonna have to win at least one of those games. And in order to get to the Super Bowl, you arguably might have to play him a third time.
But the fun thing is that Mr. Thomas Patrick Edward Brady Jr. absolutely annihilated that team in the Super Bowl.
That's great.
And so you get him on the Raiders with arguably better talent in certain aspects than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
How old will he be when for next season if you were to play?
I don't know that matters.
46.
And yet, I think he could easily win a Super Bowl with them. I think there's a second option here that I think is the worst option that I could also see them doing that I have a lot
Mhm.
less, a lot less confidence that they could win a Super Bowl. But I could see them attempting a trade with the Green Bay Packers and bringing in Aaron Rodgers because it's just one of those situations, right? Like the Packers clearly it didn't work this season. It clearly didn't work. So if you're the Green Bay
I think we would come to an agreement there.
So if you're the Green Bay Packers, you kind of have a couple of options here. Number one, you have your backup that you drafted for seemingly no reason. Uh
But
and he's
we have to have the future. We got to
yeah.
have a
Well,
replacement.
he is threatening to leave basically because I mean, why would you stay at this point if you're just going to play second banana to Aaron Rodgers? So, it begs the question of if you're Green Bay, you can't just do what you did this year. And I guess you could try drafting a wide receiver and see if that somehow just mystically fixes everything.
Mhm.
But it might just be time to face facts and kind of blow it up a little bit or do something smart like, hey, the Raiders are in kind of a like desperate situation. If they can trade, hell, even maybe if they end up with Derek Carr, it's just one of those situations of if they can get rid of
Who, the
Aaron
Packers?
Rodgers, yeah.
Why would they want it? Like, literally, why would they want Derek Carr?
Well, I don't know that they would, but I think it would be a similar situation, right, to like the Jared Goff and the Stafford trade. Like
Well,
you
but
give up what you have in order to kind of fleece the Raiders as best as you can for like draft picks. Maybe instead of Derek Carr, who knows? Maybe they get fucking somehow they convince them to give him Max Crosby,
yeah,
something
but
like that.
in fairness, though, like Jared Goff, like we got him in his like mid-20s. Like when the Lions like traded for him, he was like
Sure.
25, 26. You know,
Right.
like
No,
like
I get that. I'm just
Derek Carr
saying
would be 32
right.
coming in, and it's like, and like it's not like he's a quarterback where like you
But how many
think he's
years does he have in his contract? It's not like he has like 10 years.
well, like like I'm not saying that, but it's like one of those things where like if you're bringing him in to like is he even gonna be the quarterback for the next 2 years? Like do you know if he's gonna be good in like 3 or 4 years? Like
Yeah, I don't know that that super matters because I think his contract is it's less than 4 years from what I understand, and I'm willing to bet that he
I
makes more money than Aaron Rodgers. So my thought
nonetheless,
process
I would bet my life that Derek Carr will not be a Green Bay Packer. I would bet my
for
life
sure,
on that.
I definitely think that that's obviously lower on the possibilities. I'm just saying like that could potentially make it into the deal somehow, but I'm just saying like if you're the Green Bay Packers, it's kind of a good way to dump off Aaron Rodgers, who's clearly just not it at this point, and try to fleece the Raiders, who are pretty easy to negotiate a bad deal with. I mean, you never know in that circumstance, but I think easily the one that makes the most sense is Tom Brady going there. Like, I could see him to the 49ers. I know that this has been like the talk, but something, I don't know, like if
Here,
he was going to go to
there's
the
another option.
49ers, I
Here's
feel like
another option for Tom.
sure.
Go the away. God,
He's gonna play till
please.
he's 50. But the thing with Tom as well is that I just feel like if he was gonna go to the 49ers, I feel like it like shoulda, coulda, woulda already happened by now. Like I don't know what it is, but it just seems like that's just not gonna happen. It seems like the fairy tale ending that is just never to be in a way.
Well, like, yeah,
Um,
like how are they gonna put it together? Like what
yeah,
pieces like at a certain point they're gonna have to start paying some of the guys that they have in their defense. They're gonna have to
sure.
start, like you have like a guy like Christian McCaffrey that you have his contract there. Like you have, the quarterback that you gave up a ton to go get. And let's be honest, if you were to try to trade him out in the open market right now, you would get pebbles.
Yeah, kinda nothing, right? Like,
Like they're and even like Jimmy Garoppolo, like
yeah, his
teams would
value's
want to
not
go out
high.
and like maybe go make a move for him, but like what's the highest pick you're giving up for Jimmy Garoppolo?
Oh, not much. I could
Like a
easily see him being a Buccaneer, but
like
for not
like
much.
what are you trading? Like at most like a
Like a
fourth or a third
third,
round pick?
yeah, I'd say probably like a third and like I don't know, you're like
Like a
some
third
other
and a
guy.
sixth? Like a
Yeah,
third and a
something like
future
that.
sixth or something? But like
Sure.
yeah. But
And
like,
maybe some random ass guy in your team that no one knows the name of.
mhm. And
Yeah.
so like, I just don't feel like they're in a luxurious position to like, because like, is Tom Brady's contract, is he up? Would he be a free agent?
Yes.
Okay. So
And I just see him signing with, at this point, it feels like if he's truly gonna continue to play, I feel like his 2 destinations are either A, continue with the Buccaneers and basically tell them, "Listen, we gotta overhaul this whole thing if we're gonna keep being successful."
I prefer the
Or
destination anywhere but here.
Or I think honestly, like, at his age, as you pointed out, he's not gonna sit there and wait around for the Buccaneers to fix this mess. So it just makes more sense to him to say, "You know what? Fuck this. The Raiders clearly have a lot better thing going on. I know how to fix that team. That team is not as bad as they look. I can fix them." And I could see him going to the Las Vegas Raiders and fixing it. And I think he'd be smart enough to be able to help them, get some guys for some very team friendly contracts to come over and fill in some of the gaps that they need, just
Yeah,
like he did with Tampa Bay.
I
Go in the
just
Super Bowl.
but like in fairness though, I just think we overestimate or like we underestimate how difficult it is just to come in a year and completely flip a franchise. And even then, when you look at the Buccaneers, like
Yes.
yeah, like they weren't a great team when Tom came in, but
Sure.
like at least there was like function. At least there were like guys in the locker room that could play. There was like promise and like things of like if James could put it together, there was like somewhat remnants of that team. Whereas with the Raiders, their culture's literally been in shambles for years. And to just say that that culture overnight,
Yeah.
you can just bring in Tom and all of a sudden, oh, Super Bowl. I just like, I get that he did it. I get that he's great. And I get that he came in and he helped the Buccaneers do that. But to just say that he could just he could easily do it again at 46 in the same division as Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. Like, dude, like he's gonna be like to go out and like he's gonna have to sling it against these young kids. And they're
I know
just
what you're
getting
saying.
better and better. Like,
I,
I just don't think he's gonna be able to hang.
I get what you're saying. I would argue though, I think the Raiders, I understand the like culture thing, although the Bucks did not have a very good culture either. I would say that like the
They didn't have as bad as the Raiders, though.
Sure. I think though, comparably talent wise, though, it's kind of there, right? Like you have Max Crosby, who's one of the best rushers in the game. You've got Devonte Adams, who's better even than Mike Evans is. You've got Hunter Renfrow, who's super capable in the slot where he needs to be. Is he as good as Chris Godwin? Not quite, but I think that it's one of those kind of like it's kind of got the same blueprints, right?
Right.
And then
But
also Darren Waller is very much like except for all of
again,
his injury
Robert,
problems, he's kind of that Gronk adjacent
right.
style tight end that he's been missing.
But again, the problem is you're comparing what the Buccaneers are like versus what the Raiders would be like in the similarities. And I'm not saying yeah, like it would be a hell of a football team. And like when you're talking about like in comparison to where he's at right now, like most certainly, like I agree with you. But like the other comparison you have to make is the NFC that he was playing in that year when he brought the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl versus the AFC he would be coming into this next year. Because I would argue that the AFC might be the deepest it's ever been.
Yeah, that definitely does not super bode well. I think that the Raiders have
Look,
ish some of the same level of talent as the Buccaneers in a lot of areas, but I think that that is where the difference lies is that yeah, it is much more difficult in the AFC than it is in the NFC.
and the other thing
But
too, Tom needs an offensive line, and the
yeah, that's
Raiders have one of the worst offensive lines in football. Like, how are you getting that fixed?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the big things, right? Now, yeah, the Buccaneers did not start off with as bad of one nearly. I think the only the only way to fix that really would be they'd have to
The
do the
Buccaneers had a good
best
amount of
draft you've
pieces.
ever seen.
Yeah, they had a good amount of pieces like before Tom came in. They just need like for the most part, they needed a quarterback, and then they went and got more playmakers alongside him. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And so like
Which was very surprising because I think a lot of people didn't realize how deep the
right.
Buccaneers were. Like even as a Bucks fan, I didn't realize how good a lot of our players were because I mean, the simple thing of it is like when your team sucks, you don't know who's even really like good on your team in a lot of the positions like defensive line, offensive line, stuff like that, and whatever. Because it's like these meat and potatoes, like gritty players. they don't shine very bright on a team that sucks ass. Like they just
Right.
don't. So once Tom showed up and fixed a lot of what our problem was, which was the quarterback, yeah, it was a lot easier to see that they had more of a foundation than what we realized.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know.
When you talk about major moves, by the way, that could happen this offseason as well,
Yes.
when you talk about what can make that division even more difficult, there's a guy that's out there in the coaching market. His name's Sean Payton. And there's a
Yes, I
team,
hate this guy.
yeah. There's a team that's underachieving this year named the Los Angeles Chargers. And they have a hell of a quarterback and a hell of a stupid head coach.
Boy, do they ever. I love Justin Herbert. Yeah, the LA
Like, literally
Chargers
give
are my
Sean Payton
brothers.
literally give Sean Payton, like, one of the top 3 best young quarterbacks, like, in the league right now
Yep.
in Los Angeles with owners that are desperate to have a relevant team. Like, pay that guy. You know what I mean? And, like, when you
It
look at
would
the
be really entertaining to see the Chargers become the LA team as the Rams just flounder and drown in their fucking
Right,
dumbass mistakes.
right. My last point,
Mm,
I will here's what I'll say. When you look at the AFC,
mm.
let's just look at what the potential road would have to be to get through the playoffs. And like this is just for any team, right? Like this is just like this is how this like just put in perspective. These are the quarterbacks you'd have to face in this conference. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson,
Maybe.
Joe Burrow, like Justin Herbert. Like as of right now, like even if Derek
Yeah.
Carr got there, like he was a gunslinger and you never knew what happened.
Yeah.
We all know about the off the field issues, but we know when healthy and when he was playing, we knew Deshaun Watson was an MVP level quarterback. Like that's the
True.
crazy thing, man. This this conference is
It's
insane.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And like you even have like a team like the Jets. You talk about it like a potential Aaron Rodgers fit. What the hell? Go full Brett Favre. Go to the Jets
Yeah.
and look like a grizzly old man and lead that Jets team to a Super Bowl. How fun would that be?
It would be something. Yeah, I am excited for the offseason to see what happens. But Sean, I think in summary, what we've determined is that the Lions are winning the Super Bowl. The Buccaneers need serious help, and the Raiders will win a Super Bowl in the near future if Tom Brady shows up.
Mhm.
But a team that is not destined for greatness. In fact, the worst team maybe ever to grace the beautiful hardwood floors of the National
Well,
Basketball Association.
that's just not true. That's just objectively not true. I listen, we can make whatever jokes we want. Like we can have our fun, haha. We can poke at how bad they are.
Yeah.
Objectively, there are
Uh,
like even in a
historically
joke,
worse teams.
there are so many other dumpster fires we could pee on before we get to this one, my friend.
That's true. But this is, in fact, the current dumpster fire, and that is the Detroit Pistons, who, Cade Cunningham, ladies and gentlemen, is gone for the rest of the season. And it is indeed, oh, look at that. There he is. It is indeed what it is. That man will not touch a basketball court for the remainder of the year. And the Pistons were already fucked with him. They're triple quadruple ultra fucked without him. Hi, Sean.
So, all right.
They
So I put these on prematurely. I apologize.
That's okay. I was just gonna make a quick costume change as well. But Sean, while you tell the viewers what is going on with our boy Kadarius Cadathan Cunningham III, if you could go ahead and
How about this? I'm gonna give the summary, but I'm gonna
yeah.
wait to give my take
Yeah, yeah,
until you
yeah.
get back.
Cool. And I was saying, they couldn't win with him on the court, and they certainly are fucked without him.
Well, okay, yep. So I'll give the summary. So they were 3-9 with him on the court. They, started the season off struggling, had, health issues on the bench, had, injury issues all throughout the lineup. And then all of a sudden, Cade had a previous injury in his left shin and left leg that began to continue to flare up, which led to the point of him starting to sit out games. He started to seek medical advice and opinions, and eventually, came to the conclusion along with the franchise that he would not only be getting surgery, but in particular, he would be getting season-ending surgery to repair the stress fracture. And it's not just a left shin fracture; they're calling it a left leg fracture. So, the timeline is that Cade will. They're saying that he should be fully healthy again right after the season concludes. So supposedly he should still be able to have a fully healthy summer to not only like rehab, but also like work on his game, which is good. So he can come into training camp in shape. Hopefully that means he doesn't miss a beat going into next year. So from if you want me to just talk as an analyst,
Yes,
this is my
give me your good analyst take.
so I'm going to give you two takes. I'm going to give you my take as an analyst, and I'm going to give you my take as a fan. Let's start with the analyst. As an analyst, look, the Detroit Pistons are 7-22. At this current time, they are in position to have the best odds at Victor Wembanyama in the draft. Not only that, even if they don't get Victor Wembanyama, there is still a lot of talent within the lottery. In addition, you still have guys like Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart that you can develop. You have guys like Bojan Bogdanovic that's seeking a lot of interest in trades. Even Sadiq Bey is a guy that teams are calling and giving us offers on. So listen, Troy Weaver can either sit pat, keep the roster we have, bring Bojan into next year when we want to turn the corner, get even more pieces along with what we get in the lottery, and let's see what we have. Or if he wanted to, he could go get even more assets with guys like Bojan and Sadiq and put us in a position to get even more pieces for next year if they wanted to make more changes. So this isn't like a dire thing. If there's an injury that like if there's like something you're gonna get surgery for, a
Right.
stress fracture's probably like the least worst thing, if that makes any sense, because a lot of guys have come
Yeah, I know
back
what
and
you're
healed
saying.
and been perfectly fine. But if you want my fan perspective,
Yes. Oh, here we go. Now we got the buffs.
all right, I'm just gonna put these on right here. Okay. God damn it! Shit! I gotta tune into this team every night with no Cade Cunningham. Are you
They were hard to watch with him, and they're impossible to
well?
watch without him.
Well, so they're not impossible to watch. They're still remnants of hope. But listen, man, it's just inherently it's like you can just tell you can just tell the presence that he has on the court, or the presence that is missed each
Mm,
and every night, because like outside of Bojan, it's not there's not a consistent guy that can get a bucket right now. You know, like it's a night to night committee thing of guys like, Jaden Ivey has his moments of greatness, but like he's a rookie. He's gonna make mistakes. He's not gonna be
sure.
consistent. Like as good as Sadiq's been, he's also started out struggling shooting the three this year. They also
He
had to
always
move him,
does.
they also moved him to the bench, and they had to like make some adjustments, because of the lineup that they had and like the roster that they had and like how things were fitting. So like there's like a lot of things that they can still figure out this season. I don't think this like sets them back, but like when we just talk about like a quality of life standpoint, dude, I have to watch. Let's see here. Let's do the math. Well, NBA playoffs generally start around beginning second week of April.
Right.
I have to watch 3 to 4 more months of basketball without Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, you might want to find like a B team fast.
Oh, believe me, brother, that B team's called League Pass, brother. We go all around the league.
Yeah,
And
you
like
should watch anything but them. Listen, man, you say they're not impossible to watch, but Sean, listen, they've won 9 games with the man.
I mean, all right,
They're not
listen.
going to win shit
Listen,
without him.
listen. When I say like it's not impossible, what I mean is you can get a subscription. You can You can turn on the game.
I was gonna say, unless someone
It,
fucking tapes your eyelids open, I
well,
mean, Jesus Christ, who's gonna watch this team on purpose?
here's the thing that's been impressive though. In all seriousness, like in all seriousness, like
Yeah.
dropping like just like giving them credit where credit's due.
Okay.
In the past month,
Uh-huh.
over the past month, they've only had like 2 losses in double digits.
Okay.
For the most part, it's been either competitive losses that they very much could have been within reach. They stayed within the entire game, or they were close competitive wins. Right? Like I think, like
Yeah.
this team is still
Dude,
they're
yeah.
learning to compete. They're getting better. However, from a fun standpoint, from this, like I'm gonna be honest with you, like this is
Zero fucking fun.
when we talk about like the dog days of a rebuild, like we've
Uh-huh.
talked about those before. This is the rock bottom of the dog days of a rebuild. You just like these are the months that you just watch, just to support your team. You tune in for the highlights, from guys like Duran and Ivy, just because of how exciting of players they are
Sure.
inherently. Like I will say from from like the product that's on the court right now, like the team that's surrounding Cade is significantly better this year than it was last year. So like there's still guys that can play. It's just when you know
I
that
just the problem that I'm
they're
having with
fighting
this,
with one arm behind their back because they don't have Cade. That's just at the end of the day, that's always going to be what the case is until he's back in the lineup.
and wasn't he injured for a lot of last year as well? Or am I
Well, okay, he
completely
was not no, not for a lot of last year.
okay?
He played he played the vast majority of last year. He might have missed. Let me see here. So Cade, he played. So last year he only missed about 18 games. He did have
Okay.
like he had that stuff at the beginning of the season, and then he had like a slight injury in the middle. But then he pretty
Sure.
much played the rest of the year. And then, like that at the end, like there was a little bit of that, like stress, like the stress and like the pain in his shin, and it started to flare back up again and get
I
worse.
see.
And
So
that's
this
what
is
happened
carrying
now.
over.
Yeah, and so now essentially, the diagnosis that they gave is instead of they're calling it a left leg stress fracture.
Right.
So
Listen, and here's
just sucks. There's really not much else to say other than it sucks.
it does, but Sean, I guess my point is this, right? And I appreciate your your unbelievable amount of optimism, and the fact that because you watch so much basketball, you're able to find all of the good things. But I just got to say, man, as a fan and a more casual fan, I would say than you are, because I obviously watch less analytically, right? It's
I get it, brother.
extremely fucking disheartening because this feels like the 2019 Red Wings, who had nobody on that team. The team couldn't win anything. I couldn't fucking stand to watch my favorite hockey team because they were an unwatchable just disaster on the ice.
Well,
And then it feels worse because they're as bad as that Red Wings team, and yet it's as if they have Sider and Raymond on the team to where it's just like, okay, this is our future. They're on the fucking court,
right, but
and
I
they're
think
still garbage.
right, okay, but again, I think first of all, a lot of that stressed energy stems from how the beginning of the season's gone. And I
Sure,
think the vast majority of people that felt that way about how this year's gone stopped tuning in almost right away. And I
sure,
understand, but like again, they have been a different team. On top of that, even though like again, like I agree with you in the fact that like that like with how this season's gone and the energy around the team, it is it has been a disaster. Like absolutely, it's not the way that you wanted it to go. But like the difference is like when we sucked a couple years ago, it was just a ton of guys on the team that you're hoping maybe panned out. There were first round picks that you made that were swings. It was like in theory could be something, but you have no idea. Like
sure.
the difference is with this team is that there's the painfully obvious, like everyone's like, oh come on, man, like when's this gonna end? It's like mother, how much cap space do they have this offseason? They're gonna have an insanely good draft pick this offseason.
I
Cade's gonna
do
come back healthy next season. Jaden Ivey's
Sure.
going to be in year 2. Like, do you realize like how many moves they can make and how like the franchise even today still said they firmly believe that next year's when they can turn the corner. Like that's the thing, man. Like they're just like that can very much still happen. Like the light is at the end of the tunnel. It's just we're gonna have to get through one more sucky year. I get it. It
Yeah,
sucks.
it's time this offseason for the Pistons to do a facelift. It's time to just say enough's enough of this bullshit.
Well,
It-
no. We're not going to say it. No, like, because if you're a franchise that operates in enough's enough, you're going to be the Chicago Bulls where you go trade for Nikola Vucevic. I'm dead serious. Like that's what an enough's enough trade is.
Rude.
But that's what it was.
Yeah,
Like
I guess
like
what I
what
mean, yeah.
well like what I'm saying is
Mhm.
that there's still like there's still free agents that you could add that have like long-term value. Like Troy Weaver's still going to act in the long-term best interest. They're not going to make this crazy like we're going to cash in to try to contend right now move, but they're sure as hell going to make moves that set themselves up for the long term. Like they're going to be competitive. The roster's going to be better next year. It's
Well, I
just you don't wanna rush this, man. Like, you like, bloody hell, we've been doing it right for so long. You wanna mess this up now?
yeah,
That's my message to the fans. Like, I get the frustration, but bloody hell, like, just let how much has Troy Weaver continued to show you that you should have reasons to be optimistic? Like, even the draft this year, like, even the guys we have in the core, like, even though we're struggling, we have 2 rookies that are considered top 10 in their class, and one of them was selected borderline outside of the lottery.
yeah.
It's one of those things where like the for a lot of teams and I understand that like people have expectations and when you get two young dynamic talented guys like Ivy and Cade, you want to see that success right away. You want to see like what you hope they're going to be, but the reality of it is that they're in year 1 and year 2. Even when Cade was on the court, as great as he was looking, he still just couldn't do it by themselves. They're young.
Yeah.
Like that's just it's like I get the frustration, but, like, I just think to me, like, a lot of times, like, people, it's just misplaced anger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I
Who's
mean,
there to blame?
for sure, and, like, the thing is, like, obviously, it took a while until, you know, every player that is great at this point took a while till they became that guy. Like, Giannis was not immediately Giannis. And obviously, we're still kind of looking at some of the young guys on other teams that were drafted before, to become what they're going to become even before Cade and Jaden are able to. But I guess one of the things that I guess wonder about then is there's all this excitement of, oh, we have all this cap space, right?
Mhm.
Who's going to be on the market for us to get? And like, what are we going to allocate those funds to essentially?
Well, so to answer your question, cap space isn't entirely about free agency. It also means that you have the ability to take in cap space as well via trade. It opens you like it allows you to have the flexibility and the options to make the moves that you want to make down the line. So,
No,
you
I know
know,
that, but who do we have to trade or what do we have to trade?
well, first of all, you have multiple young players on your team like Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes, if, in theory, if you wanted to make moves on them. You have future assets and picks. You have multiple players on on your team that can act as rotation and salary filler. They have assets. The thing is that, for this upcoming year, like there's guys, there are multiple pieces and a lot of talented players like Grant Williams out of Boston's a guy I'd love to see Detroit try and go get that's a free agent this summer. Like there's a lot of good players that are going to be available, but again, over the next couple of years and even, it's going to be interesting to see how things evolve over the next couple of months. You're going to see teams that are going to try to make changes and they're going to try to shift, organizationally their focus. And so therefore you're going to see a lot of guys become available. And so, like the simple truth of it is like, they're gonna have the room to operate with the amount of cap space they're gonna have. They're gonna have pieces that people will be interested in. They already do right now with guys like Sadiq, and even with a guy like Killian, he's playing up. He's raising his trade stock right now. So there's a lot of options they have. Even if they wanted to, they could go get a star if they even needed to go throw in a guy like Jaden Ivey at some point. Like I'm just saying, like there's options. You even have that pick this upcoming year. If that's a highly valuable pick and it's not the first overall pick, there's much more of a conversation of saying, hey, we could trade that pick and go and try and get a guy that could help us right now. So like
Right.
that's the thing. There's a ton of different options. So
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I think as this rebuild continues to go on, I think, it is fair the amount of criticism that there is on some level because obviously it's been a very long time since Detroit's been relevant, and so it can be very frustrating. At the
right.
same time, I think, like you said, I think you do have to dial it back at least a little bit and realize what we're trying to achieve here, what we're trying to do. I think for Pistons fans, what is frustrating is like it's easy to say, "Oh, we looked really competitive in all of these losses and we looked a lot better."
Okay.
But it's still a loss, and I think that that's where a lot of
Right.
the Pistons fans really fall off.
Okay. But why but like again, and this is the mental exercise. Why'd you lose? We don't have Cade. Okay, and also you just have not that good of a team that's rebuilding. Why haven't we been good for a while? Oh, because for 12 plus years our team was middling and didn't have any direction until 3 years ago when the team
Right.
decided to actually take a direction. That's not Troy Weaver's fault. That's not Dwayne Casey's fault. In fact, Dwayne Casey, even though he was brought in to compete, was part of the regime that said, "Hey, we got to blow this up." So, like, I understand, like, people's frustrations with, like, where the franchise has been over the course of years, but, like, I would understand the frustration if we still had Reggie Jackson, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Andre Drummond. Like, if that was our team and this was the production we were seeing, I
That'd be
would
brutal.
understand the frustration because that team was supposedly trying to win games. This team's trying to learn how to compete. And
True.
and even within that, like, you can look at teams that are losing that have been bad throughout the NBA, and you can tell the ones that are losing and have direction and are going somewhere, and the ones where there's, dysfunction, where there's people that are, that are having problems in the locker room. Like, even the Atlanta Hawks, a team that has a ton of talent. Trey Young and his coach literally are having beef and are having qualms and problems. You don't hear any qualms and issues coming out of the Pistons locker room. Literally, all
True.
you hear
Even
is
Zach LaVine is apparently beefing now with their front office people again with the Bulls, so
like again, like right now, like it's kind of like what it's like it's a quote that Dwayne Casey said where it's like when you're building a beautiful building, like a beautiful skyscraper, no one cares when you're laying the concrete. You know
it's
what I
true.
mean? People wanna come when it's the grand opening, when, when you have the beautiful chandeliers and the extravagant food and everything's great. No one cares when you're laying concrete. And like that's the thing is like it's the same thing with what the Lions had to do last year when they were just so bad because they
Yeah.
had to rip it down to the studs because of what they were left with, right? And like again, let's remind people what Stan Van Gundy left Troy Weaver with year one. He had Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, Steve Luke, Bruce Brown. Like it's again for me, like I had like the reason why maybe I'm not frustrated is because I remember the days of begging this team to make a decision, to
Yeah.
literally stop middling, stop being mediocre, stop being in that same spot. Like the worst place you can be in this league is the middle, right? And the
Right,
Pistons,
commit to being terrible in order to be great later.
yeah, like get young, develop on what you have, like because great basketball teams, like sustainable basketball teams, those are programs. Like, you look at the teams that succeeded when their still were, like, successful and good when their stars left. Look at the Heat. They never had a tanking year after Dwayne Wade and LeBron left.
Boy, this year's looked ugly.
I mean, this is genuinely the first terrible year
Yeah.
they've had since.
And it's honestly a shocking year because the talent on that team should not be where they're at.
And
It's
even then, you can make a
unbelievable.
legitimate case that they can turn it around.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If they get hot and start playing the way that they absolutely should, yeah.
Right. The San Antonio Spurs literally are tanking for the first time since getting rid of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Kawhi. Wanna know why? Like, what do those teams have in program? Like, what do those teams have in common? They're programs. Like, they're cultures. They're things that are so like for me, like I again, like I can get like the criticism of yeah, it sucks is like that the team isn't what we were hoping it could be. Like we were hoping like like we were hoping that this team taking the next step would mean that they were also taking the next step this year in the win column as well. This
Right.
team is taking next steps. They're just still sucky next steps with setbacks that are keeping them from even better things. Like I would argue, like with how they've looked of late, if Cade was playing with this roster, with how he was playing to start the year, we'd be having a different conversation right now.
That's fair. Yeah, and I think, yeah, I think you're totally right of like the bigger picture. I think, you also understand that obviously in the short term and for especially casual fans, it can be very tough.
Right.
But Sean, speaking of a team that is as frustrating as that over the last at least couple of years, certainly not in a legacy sense, the Detroit Red Wings. They are currently at 32 points in the NHL, and that puts them at about 14th. So they're clinging on to a playoff spot. They're in the lower end of a playoff spot.
So like 14th, is that like out of the entire league?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going out of the entire league right now. I tend to not really give a shit about divisions. In fairness, they're battling with Tampa Bay for like third in the Atlantic, but Tampa Bay is too talented of a team. Like are the Red
Right.
Wings going to sustainably be able to be better than the back-to-back champions? I don't fucking think so.
Right. So like you got to look at the wild card with them probably, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like the thing that's crazy is I do talk about like a recent Stanley Cup champion. The Colorado Avalanche only have 30 points and they're in 19th, and they've been a very kind of weird up and down bumbly kind of team. Their Stanley Cup hangover is hitting them hard. But yeah, I mean, they're just outside. I don't remember how many teams make it because one of the problems I have with pro sports in general is that it feels like every fucking team makes it to the goddamn playoffs. But I believe it's like 16, which is not every team. But when you have 32, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like we're talking about
Back
half.
in my day, the college football playoff was just two teams. It was called the BCS National Championship. Now we're getting all these participation trophy 12 players playoff baby back bullshit. Back in my day, it was only two.
That's right. No, what's funny is I do think that the sweet spot is around like 12. I think once you start getting into half or more of the league making the playoffs, it's kind of like, what the fuck are we doing? But that's fine. In nevertheless, when you do look at
You know why
top,
they do it, by the way.
oh
Because
yeah,
it's way too valuable for markets to say, "Oh, we're in the playoffs."
oh yeah, and the TV contracts. Are you kidding me? Of course. And
Like,
also, it
are
keeps
you gonna
fans
rob
invested.
Are you gonna rob those poor people in Charlotte that work their asses off to save for those playoff tickets when they make it every 7 years to get swept in the first round? They like that's what they like. That's their hopes and dreams, Robert.
Is that a reference to the Charlotte Hornets or?
Yeah, that's exactly. It's yeah, the Charlotte Hornets. People are like, man, I'm just working hard. And it's like I'm just, and then all of a sudden they get
That
swept in the first round, like every
Yeah, I was gonna
6
say,
years.
speaking of Charlotte, or I suppose Carolina, the Hurricanes are actually in 8th place, 36 points in the NHL. But yeah, it's one of those things, right? Like the top 16 teams, when you look at it, they all deserve to be in the playoffs. Like the 16th team in the NHL right now is the Edmonton Oilers, who have two of the best goal scorers I've ever seen in my entire life. Like maybe in NHL history, these guys are fucking ridiculous. Like Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are like Wayne Gretzky being born twice and put on the same team. Like it's bizarre what's happening. Now the rest of the team is dog shit, basically.
So
But
they're the Anaheim Angels of hockey.
yes, yes, they are. They very much are. Yeah, they're kind of the Angels. Actually, they're at the LA Angels of Anaheim.
Yeah,
Sean.
but
Speaking of which, you got traded to the Braves, so
I did.
congratulations, my friend. Very happy
Yep.
for you.
Mm-hmm. You know,
But
it,
the Red Wings, man, it's a strange situation because like things are going well. I mean, we're in a potential playoff spot. And the thing is like by having a zillion player or teams allowed to get into the playoffs, it makes you feel good. Like as a fan, like your team probably shouldn't be there, but it makes you feel good because it's like, look, we're better than 50% of the league. That's cool, I
right.
guess. But the thing of it is, it's very much clear that this is a growing team. One of the biggest indications of that is that last year's rookie of the year, if you will, is or was Moritz Seider, our defenseman.
Mhm.
He's been all right. He's had a very much sophomore slump kind of season. Filip Hronek has been playing out of his fucking mind this year and is very clearly our number one defenseman. He actually leads the team in assists. Like, the guy has been playing unbelievable hockey, which has been crazy because Hronek was never quite this good. And, like, honestly, there was a lot of times where I was like, like, he was one of
So
those guys on the team that I could give a fuck less. And
so
now he's the best defenseman on the team.
So, like, what's the so, like, for the Red Wings then? Because it looks like,
Mm,
for them, it could be like, "Oh, we could maybe get to the wild card and maybe have,
yes.
like, a like 1, maybe 2 like, 2 playoff series at the most, like, probably
One.
1 if we're being honest."
One.
Uh, yeah, 1. But, like, if they were to have a playoff what's the next step for, like, let's say this off season, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, like, this season went pretty well." What's gonna take this team over the top? Like, what's the next steps for this team?
Yeah, so seeing where they're at right now is really, really good to see because, yeah, I mean, they could easily make a wild card spot, but considering all the teams above them that I'm looking at and who they would be in the mix with for a wild card spot, they would get fucked. Like, there's no way they're winning a playoff series. Like, I don't care if it's the wild card, they ain't winning shit. Um, but that's okay. Um, Honestly, the big steps at this point are you're gonna need your rookies, much like the Pistons.
Pistons.
Yes, much like that, you're gonna need them to obviously get over the sophomore slump and to kind of get back to being, who they are. That's number one. Number two is we have some guys that are playing in Grand Rapids, as well as also overseas right now in some of the European leagues. And
I don't know, Chief. From my very limited view, if for my very limited sample size, if you're
from the
relying on
single
what
game you went to.
if you're relying on what like listen, if they were there that night and they were
Yeah, they were
basing
not.
listen, I understand, but
Oh.
if let's say Stevie Y was tuning into this game and wondering
Oh.
what the state of his farm system was, he would say,
Not good.
"Oh shit."
Yeah, getting scored on, what was it, 5 times in the first period? Not good.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, so and the thing of it is that, like, honestly, the best prospects in the NHL typically go straight from Europe to the NHL. Like, they don't really hit the AHL too much. Like, maybe for, like, a very limited amount of games, which is pretty much what happened with Seider and Raymond. But yeah, it was kind of like, okay, you're good enough in Europe. Like, we don't need you to go to Grand Rapids. Like, just get to fucking Detroit.
Right.
And I think that, there is some talent over there in Europe that it'll be interesting to see what they look like when they get over to this team. But honestly, the biggest things with Detroit for the offseason, right? It's see where those rookies are at, see if those guys are going to be able to come to the team yet and contribute. Figure out what the fuck's going on with Jacob Vrana. He's been a huge miss this season, and I understand he's got some personal issues going on. Whatever it is, we don't know because no one
He's
fucking.
been very Voronin off.
I mean, nobody fucking tells you anything in the NHL. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, Sean, but like in every other sport, they tell you what the injury is. Every single other one. In this sport, they will tell you if they have an upper or lower body injury. They won't tell you anything else. They won't tell you shit. They won't tell you if it's the knee, the big toe, fucking ACL, his eyeball's missing, he's got one butt cheek. Like, they won't fucking tell you anything.
It's like outside the locker room, like, yeah, lower body injury, day to day, could see him in the lineup any day now. Really,
dude,
really
I'm not
feel
even
like he's looking good. And
that
it's
is
like,
literally a quote.
and then he
I'm
goes
not
back.
fucking around. That is an actual quote because just this week, the Vegas Golden Knights are in a bit of a downward spiral because they are missing 3 of the best players on this team. One of them being Jack Eichel, who is being said to be week to week. That's not fucking good. And then you also have Zach Whitecloud, who's one of their other best players. He's a good position player for what it doesn't matter. The point is he's month to month. And we don't know what's wrong with him. Like, as fans, it's literally like, well, it's like a lower body thing. It's like, the fuck does that mean? What does that even mean? So, anyways, the point is that Jacob Vrana, he left because he had, what the fuck did they even call it? It was like the wellness thing or some shit. So it's like, that could literally mean anything. Like, it could mean literally anything. Like, he could be
Like
depressed,
health and
he could
wellness or
be
something
on
like that.
drugs, he could be on whatever the fuck. Like, who knows? I still have this thing on this jersey from the tag, apparently. So that's bizarre. Anyways, it was just poking me in the side, and it was really weird. Anyways, the point is, Jacob Brown has been gone all season, basically, and he would have been a very major part of this team. And I was really looking forward to him. So figuring out whether he's going to be on the team ever again or not is going to be imperative. If not, you're going to need to go out and get another goal scorer. It's unfortunate the way that has went. Obviously, I hope only the best for him. But guess what? This is a fucking hockey team. We need to get a goddamn goal scorer on there, okay? We can't just sit here and wait for you all day. So that's going to be number one. And then obviously finding some consistent goaltending. Obviously, Husso has been fucking incredible in net, but Nedeljkovic has had not a good season as the backup goaltender. He was a guy that we got basically for free. And it was one of those shot in the darks. He could be the future or he could not. And ultimately, it doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't look like he's the future, but it does kind of look like Husso might be the future.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I would say, confirming and figuring out that goaltending, whether it's going to be Hus or who it's going to be. Finding a goal scorer other than Vrana, whether he comes back or not, is going to be huge. Figuring out how the rookies are going to do at this point is going to be huge. So yeah, I think some of that is kind of the way to move up at this point. I think that the coach clearly seems like a very good fit. I think he's fixed a lot of the things we had an issue with, specifically the power play, which was ass. So seeing that be somewhat good is nice. I would like to see us move on from Tyler Bertuzzi. I love the guy. He's an absolute bruiser, but he's wildly inconsistent. He's got a lot of injury problems, and he was fun. You know what I mean? Like, he was one of those guys where he was fun. It's kind of like Ryan Reeves. I love Ryan Reeves. He's a great energy guy. But at a certain point, it's like, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's been fun.
Love Ryan Reeves. Just the energy he brings,
He's now on the Minnesota Wild.
You can really identify it when you see that Ryan Reeves. You can tell.
No, he's awesome. And actually, the funny thing is he actually has energized the Minnesota Wild and kind of turned them back into a somewhat competitor, but we'll see.
So he's like Pat Bev?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. He's basically that player who pisses everybody off. Like, you hate him unless he's on your team because he just fucks with people. And he's
Pat Bev.
Yeah, he's Pat Bev.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah,
you started describing him like you're just describing Pat Bev.
Yeah, I just started thinking about him like, that's actually exactly who the fuck Ryan Reeves is.
Yeah. Also, to close all that, I just love that that I could just get all of this hockey analysis and just right in the middle, you're like, I got poked by this little tag, and you just put it, and then you just and you just put it down. You're like, yeah, I feel like Luan really just brought a lot to the power play. And then, like, you just go, I got poked by this little tag. Put it down.
I have ADHD that I don't.
Overall, looking at the NHL and the quality of like what the Vegas Gold, I'm like,
I have untreated ADHD. All right, it is what it is.
Wait, you do?
Oh, but yeah. So, anyways, To answer your point, though, we're not that far. I think it's just like shoring up some certain issues. It's figuring out what's going on with Vrana, figuring out the goaltending for sure at this point, just making sure we're solid in the net. And then other than that, just going and getting some assets. Like, we have the cap room at this point. There's some guys out there that are available to get. There's deals to be made. We have rookies out there that we could easily either flip or we could, see what they've got. So, honestly, like, as far as the Red Wings go, like, they're in a really good position to where it's like, it will not take much for them to go from like, yeah, they're all right, to being like, oh, fuck, they're back.
I'm just excited to see what Victor Wembanyama brings to the NHL and like what he can do for the Red Wings. Can you picture a 7'5" just Victor Wembanyama? I feel like his legs.
Yeah, his name is Zdeno Chara. Zdeno Chara was like this 7-foot fucking monster.
Okay, but like imagine literal 7'5", like crazy wingspan. Who's stopping? Like, who's getting a goal if Victor Wembanyama's in net?
If he's in net, Jesus. Well, first of all, he's like, I don't know, he weighs like what, 30 pounds soaking wet. I think it'll be pretty fucking easy unless he's wearing the
Well,
biggest jersey ever
well,
made.
here's the thing though. Like just with his frame and his size, by default, he's gonna have the biggest hockey pads of all time. Like
Nah.
like like that net is gonna like the only what you're really gonna have to do, the top of the net's gone. Like you're just like crossbar going top titty, like that's just not happening. Like
Yeah,
you're just
top
gonna have to like
titties is
come to
off
terms.
limits. It ain't gonna
Like
happen.
what you're really gonna have to master is trying to time getting it like in between his
Eh.
legs. Like just
Which should be extremely easy because
like
that man trying to go down butterfly, I don't see that shit happening
he
easily. My man's
he
gonna snap like a fucking pretzel. Like
he's
my man.
literally when he's like there's moments where he's fallen in games where he looks like a baby giraffe, like just with his physicality, like the way he fell. It's just insane. Like just
Yeah,
his
I don't think that's gonna bode well for the NHL, my guy.
for the NBA though,
For the
he's
NBA,
gonna
he
be
might be
all
okay.
right.
It is a
He's
pretty
gonna be all
soft
right.
league, so I get it. But to end on that note, Sean, it has been fun, you guys. I can't wait for the MLB season because my Yankees are gonna be amazing, and the Tigers have done fucking nothing because they're an ass organization. Bye.
Bye.
Suck my fucking dick.